stood in the briefing chamber, his three eyes focused on the holographic display floating before him. The image showed a small blue planet rotating slowly in the darkness of space. Earth, they called it, a death world by any reasonable standard. "You will observe them," Commander said, her voice carrying the weight of disappointment. "Nothing more. Watch, record, report." Knew what this assignment really meant. Punishment. He had questioned a senior officer's decision during the last mission, and now he would spend the next cycle watching primitive aliens instead of doing real intelligence work. The humans had only just discovered fusion drives. They were barely capable of leaving their own solar system. "They are weak," continued, manipulating the hologram to show various human settlements. "Short-lived, fragile, but the Council wants data on all new species, even the insignificant ones." The other officers in the chamber made sounds of agreement. Everyone knew humans were not important. They would probably destroy themselves within a few generations, like most species from death worlds. Too aggressive, too emotional, too chaotic. Received his assignment coordinates. 7. A human mining station in the asteroid belt of their system. A small crew of 5 humans operated the facility, extracting rare metals from the floating rocks. It was far from any major human colonies, which made it perfect for secret observation. The journey took 3 days. Small stealth ship docked at an abandoned section of the mining station without triggering any alarms. The humans had terrible security protocols. He could have brought an entire assault team aboard, and they probably would not have noticed until it was too late. He set up his monitoring equipment in a sealed chamber that the station blueprints marked as Storage 7C. The humans clearly never came here. Dust covered everything, and the life support systems were running on minimal power, perfect for his needs. His sensors connected to the station's network within hours. The humans used such simple encryption that systems broke through it like paper. Soon he had access to their cameras, their communications, even their personal devices. He could watch everything. The crew consisted of 5 humans. Commander Jinwoo led the operation. He was older than the others, with gray hair at his temples and lines around his eyes. Database said humans aged quickly, their bodies breaking down after only 60 or 70 cycles. Pitiful. The chief engineer was named. He was younger, always covered in grease and burn marks from his work. He talked constantly, making jokes that the others seemed to find amusing. Did not understand human humor. It seemed random and illogical. The pilot was called. She was small even by human standards, but she moved through the station's corridors with confidence. She piloted the mining ships that went out to harvest the asteroids, watched her navigate through dense rock fields at speeds that made his blood cold. Humans had no sense of proper caution. Handled security. She was tall and muscular, spending hours each day in the station's gym. Watched in confusion as she lifted heavy weights, ran on machines that went nowhere, and practiced combat moves against training dummies. Why would anyone voluntarily cause themselves pain and exhaustion? It made no sense. The medical officer was one. He was quiet, spending most of his time in the medical bay or reading on his personal device. Of all the humans, he seemed the most reasonable too. He calculated risks, maintained careful records, and followed proper procedures, almost civilized. Began his observation reports. Day 1. Humans maintain inefficient work schedules. They stop every few hours to consume food together, wasting productive time on social bonding. Day 2. Humans show excessive emotional responses to minor events. The engineer made an error in a calculation, and instead of disciplinary action, Commander Jinwoo simply laughed and told him to double-check next time. Day 5. Humans engage in dangerous recreational activities. Watched in horror as and played a game they called Zero-G Tag in one of the cargo bays. They turned off the artificial gravity and chased each other through the air, bouncing off walls at speeds that could easily cause injury. When crashed into a storage container and cut her arm, she simply laughed, wrapped it with a bandage, and continued playing. Day 8. Humans display illogical attachment to non-functional behaviors. Every evening, the crew gathered in the common room to share a meal. They did not simply consume nutrients efficiently. They talked, told stories, and sometimes played music. Calculated that they wasted approximately 1 hour per day on these activities. Over a cycle, that was nearly 15 days of lost productivity. But despite their inefficiency, the humans somehow kept the station running. When equipment broke, fixed it with whatever materials he had available. Watched him repair a critical fusion regulator using spare parts from 3 different systems. It should not have worked. The parts were not designed to function together, yet somehow made it work. When dangerous space debris threatened the station, piloted a mining ship to intercept and destroy the rocks before they could hit. She had only minutes to react, and the probability of success was less than 40%. She did it anyway, and she succeeded. When a minor radiation leak occurred in one of the storage sections, one went in to seal it personally instead of sending a robot. He wore protective gear, but sensors showed he was still exposed to dangerous levels. Any would have been hospitalized. One finished the repair, took some medication, and went back to work the next day. Updated his reports with careful notes. The humans were reckless, inefficient, emotional. They made decisions based on gut feelings rather than proper analysis. They formed attachments to each other that clouded their judgment. They took unnecessary risks. Yet they survived, more than survived. They thrived in conditions that would kill most galactic species. Told himself it was luck, random chance. The humans would eventually make a fatal mistake, and his reports would prove that his people's assessment was correct. These creatures were not special. They were just another primitive species that would either destroy itself or fade into insignificance. He settled into his hidden chamber, watching the screens that showed every corner of the station. 3 months of observation stretched ahead of him. 3 months of watching these strange, inefficient, emotional creatures go about their lives. Had no idea that before those 3 months ended, these same humans would save his life. The first month passed slowly for. He watched the humans work, eat, sleep, and repeat the cycle. His reports remained consistent. Primitive species, inefficient methods, unlikely to pose any threat to galactic interests. His superiors barely acknowledged his messages. This was exactly the punishment assignment they intended it to be. Then things started to change. It began with, and the fusion core was monitoring the engineering section when alarms started flashing across his screens. The primary fusion reactor was overheating. Critical failure was imminent. Standard protocol for any civilized species would be to evacuate the section, seal it off, and let automated systems handle the emergency shutdown. Did not evacuate. Watched in disbelief as the human engineer ran toward the reactor, not away from it. Grabbed a toolkit and entered the reactor chamber itself. The radiation levels were climbing rapidly. Sensors showed numbers that made his skin pale. 20, 50, 100, lethal doses by any measure. Worked for 15 minutes inside that chamber. His hands moved quickly, disconnecting burned components and replacing them with spares. Sweat poured down his face. The radiation counter on the wall climbed higher and higher. 200, 300, prepared to file a death report. Then finished the repair, sealed the reactor chamber, and walked out. He was breathing hard and looked tired, but he was alive. He drank some water, took a pill from a medical kit, and reported to Jinwoo that the reactor was stable. Checked his equipment 3 times. The sensors must be wrong. Nothing could survive that much radiation. He ran diagnostic tests on all his monitoring systems. Everything was functioning perfectly. The readings were accurate. The human should be dead, but he was eating dinner with his crew that evening, laughing at one of his jokes. 3 days later, something else happened that could not explain. took a mining ship out to harvest a cluster of asteroids. This was routine work, had watched her do it dozens of times. But this time, a micrometeorite storm appeared without warning. Thousands of tiny rocks, each moving at incredible speeds, filled the space around her ship. Any sane pilot would have retreated immediately. The probability of catastrophic damage was 97%. No amount of skill could navigate through that storm. Accelerated into it. His three eyes could barely track what happened next. The human pilot moved her ship through the storm like it was dancing. She spun, dove, and rolled between the rocks with centimeters to spare. Her hands moved across the controls faster than seemed physically possible. The ship's hull took dozens of minor impacts, but nothing critical was hit. She emerged from the other side 8 minutes later, her cargo holds full of valuable ore, her ship scratched but functional. When Jinwoo asked if she was all right, she just shrugged and said, "A bit bumpy, but nothing serious." Calculated the maneuvers she had performed. 347 course corrections in 8 minutes. Reaction times averaging 0.3 seconds. Some movements appeared to happen before the obstacles were even visible on sensors, as if she could predict where the rocks would be. Impossible, yet it happened. The pattern continued. Every few days, observed something that should not be possible. Trained in the gym at 3 times standard gravity. The station's gravity generator could be adjusted for different sections, and she regularly pushed it to maximum levels. She lifted weights that would crush us bones. She ran until her body was covered in sweat and her legs shook, then she ran more. Medical databases said this should cause permanent damage. Instead, grew stronger. One day, a cargo container broke loose in a zero-gravity section. It was tumbling wildly, weighing over 300 kilograms. In normal gravity, it would be unmovable by hand. Even in zero gravity, its momentum made it dangerous. Launched herself at it, grabbed hold, and used her own body to redirect its motion into a safe storage area. She should have been crushed. Instead, she just massaged her shoulders and went back to work. One's incident was perhaps the most disturbing of all. A seal failed in one of the outer airlocks. One was inside, checking medical supplies that were stored there. The outer door blew open. Atmosphere rushed out into space. Watched the medical officer get sucked toward the opening. One managed to grab a handhold. He held on as the air screamed past him. The alarm was blaring. The emergency systems were trying to close the outer door, but something was stuck in the mechanism. One was exposed to the vacuum of space for 28 seconds before reached the manual override and sealed the breach. 28 seconds. Knew exactly what happened to living tissue in vacuum. The water in cells began to boil. Blood vessels burst. Lungs collapsed. Death was certain after 30 seconds and permanent brain damage occurred after 15. One was unconscious when they pulled him back inside. Jinwoo and rushed him to the medical bay, prepared to document his first human death. 2 hours later, one woke up. His eyes were bloodshot. His skin was covered in burst blood vessels, making him look bruised all over. He had trouble breathing, but he was alive. He was conscious. He was talking. 3 days later, he was back at work. The bruises faded. His breathing returned to normal. Could see no permanent damage at all. The reports sent back to the Ascendancy became longer and more detailed. He described each incident carefully, including all sensor data. He made no conclusions. He simply presented the facts and waited for his superiors to explain how these things were possible. The response he received was brief. Maintain objectivity, avoid overinterpretation, continue observation. But could not avoid interpretation. He watched these 5 humans every day. He saw them laugh and argue and work together. He saw them survive things that would kill any other species he knew. And slowly, very slowly, his view of them began to change. They were not lucky. Luck did not explain surviving 300 of radiation. Luck did not explain making 300 course corrections in 8 minutes. Luck did not explain living through vacuum exposure. These humans were something else, something his people had not encountered before. They were not weaker than other species. They were different. Their bodies could endure damage that would be fatal to others. Their minds could process information and make decisions at speeds that seemed impossible. They pushed themselves constantly, deliberately exposing their bodies to stress and danger, and somehow this made them stronger rather than breaking them. One evening, watched the crew gather in the common room as they did every night. They were eating something had cooked, sharing stories about their day. Jinwoo was telling an old story about his first assignment in space. The others laughed at the funny parts and groaned at the bad jokes. They looked so fragile, so small and soft compared to the hard-shelled. Their lives were so short. They could be injured so easily. Yet they had survived every challenge had seen them face, and more than that, they thrived. They found joy in their dangerous work. They supported each other. They were not just surviving in this harsh environment. They were living. Adjusted his sensors and continued recording. His assignment was to watch and report, nothing more. But in the back of his mind, a question was forming. A question that he did not dare put into his official reports. What would happen if these humans ever decided to stop being peaceful? What would happen if these survivors, these impossible creatures who refused to die, ever became enemies instead of friends? Did not have an answer, and that worried him more than anything else. The alarm woke from his rest cycle, not the station's alarm. His own sensors, screaming warnings directly into his neural interface. Something massive had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel less than 1 million kilometers from the station. He pulled up the sensor data and his 3 eyes widened in horror. The ship was enormous, easily 5 kilometers long. Its hull was dark and organic-looking, covered in strange protrusions that pulsed with sickly green light. Its database identified it immediately. Hive ship. His blood went cold. There were nightmares made real. They consumed everything. Planets, ships, entire civilizations. They took what they wanted and left nothing but empty husks behind. The galactic powers had been fighting them for generations, pushing them back system by system, but they kept coming. And now one was here, at this insignificant human mining station in the middle of nowhere. His hands shook as he tried to activate his emergency beacon. The device sparked and went dark. He checked the backup systems. Also dead. They must be jamming all communications in the area. He was cut off from any hope of rescue. Through his monitors, he watched the humans react. Jinwoo was already in the command center, pulling up tactical displays, was running toward the docking bay, was at his engineering station, was grabbing weapons from the armory. One was preparing the medical bay for casualties. They moved fast. They had drilled for emergencies. But what could 5 humans do against a hive ship? The answer came quickly. Nothing. They should evacuate immediately. Watched as the hive ship launched its attack. Dozens of small craft detached from the main vessel. Hunter drones, each one designed to board and clear out space stations. They were fast, armed, and controlled by the hive mind. Each drone was as smart as the ship itself. The drones swarmed toward 7 like insects toward food. Began packing his essential equipment. He had to reach an escape pod that would tear through the station within hours. Anyone still aboard would die or worse. The sometimes kept living specimens for study had seen the reports. Death was preferable. The first explosions shook the station. The drones were cutting through the outer hull, making entry points. Could hear them on his sensors, the sound of tearing metal, the hiss of atmosphere escaping into space, the high-pitched whine of energy weapons. He grabbed his data storage unit and headed for the door of his hidden chamber. The corridor outside was dark. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear more explosions. Checked his map. The nearest escape pod bay was 3 sections away. He would have to cross through 2 major corridors to reach it. His sensors showed drones spreading through the station. The probability of reaching the escape pods without encountering them was less than 20%. But staying here meant certain death. At least running gave him a chance. He opened the door and stepped into the corridor. The drone found him within minutes. It came around a corner without warning. Barely had time to see it before his body froze in terror. The creature was 2 meters tall, walking on 6 sharp legs. Its body was covered in black armor plating. 4 arms ending in various weapons protruded from its torso. A cluster of red sensors served as eyes. The drone's sensors locked onto. It made a sound like grinding metal. Its weapons began to power up. Turned and ran. He had never moved so fast in his life. His 3 legs carried him down the corridor at maximum speed. Behind him, he could hear the drone giving chase. Its metal feet clanged against the floor. Energy blasts scorched the walls around him. Reached a junction and turned left, heading for what he hoped was a safe room. His data pad showed an old storage compartment with thick walls. If he could reach it and seal the door, maybe he could hide until rescue came. If rescue came, another energy blast nearly hit him, dove through a doorway and slammed his hand on the control panel. The door started to close. The drone was meters away, running straight at him. The door sealed shut just as the drone reached it. Could hear it on the other side, scratching and cutting at the metal. The door was thick, but it would not hold forever. Maybe an hour, maybe less. He looked around the room. It was small, maybe 4 meters square. Storage crates were stacked against the walls. No other exits, no weapons, no tools he could use. He was trapped. Slumped against the wall and tried to calm his breathing. His hands were still shaking. He had been in combat situations before, but nothing like this. They were different. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They just consumed. His thoughts turned to the humans. Were they still alive? Had they reached the escape pods? Surely Jinwoo would have ordered an evacuation immediately. That was basic protocol. Get the crew to safety, abandon the station. Let them have the empty metal shell. Through the walls could hear more sounds of battle, explosions, energy weapons firing, the groan of metal under stress. The station was being torn apart. He pulled out his data storage unit and began recording. If these were his final moments, at least his observations would survive. Maybe someone would find the device later and learn from his mission. "This is Observer," he spoke softly into the recorder. "I am trapped on Mining Station 7. Drones have breached the facility. My emergency beacon is non-functional. I estimate less than 1 hour until this position is compromised. The human crew was last observed responding to the emergency. Their fate is unknown." He paused, trying to think of what else to say. "For the record, my assessment of humanity was incomplete. They are more capable than initial reports suggested. They survive in conditions that would kill most species. They adapt quickly to danger. However, even human resilience cannot stand against the. I hope they evacuated in time." Another explosion, this one closer. The lights in his room flickered. "I request that any officer who reviews this recording inform me that I completed my duty. Tell her I observed until the end. Tell her I was brave." Was not sure if the last part was true, but he wanted it to be. He switched off the recorder and sat in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the station dying around him. Then he heard something new, something that made no sense. Human voices, shouting, not in panic but in coordination, and the sound of weapons firing, human weapons different from technology. The humans were still here. They had not evacuated. They were fighting back. Pressed his audio sensors against the wall, trying to understand what he was hearing. The sounds of combat were coming from multiple directions now. Energy blasts, explosions, the screech of drones. and underneath it all, human voices calling out to each other. Section 7 clear. 3 drones down in the cargo bay. I need those mining lasers online now. Working on it. They were not just fighting, they sounded organized, coordinated, almost like they had a plan. That was impossible. 5 humans against a hive ship and dozens of drones. The mathematics were simple. They could not win. They should not even try. But as listened to the battle raging through the station, he heard no fear in their voices. No panic, just determination. And slowly, as he sat in his small room listening to the impossible sounds of humans refusing to die, began to wonder if maybe his calculations were wrong. Maybe the humans saw something he did not. Maybe they knew something about survival that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Or maybe they were just insane. Outside his door, the drone continued cutting through the metal. The door exploded inward. Scrambled backward as the drone forced its way through the opening. Metal shrieked and tore. Sparks flew. The drone's red sensors swept the room and locked onto him immediately. This was how he died, trapped in a storage room on an alien station, far from home. The drone raised one of its weapon arms. Energy began to build, glowing green and deadly, closed his eyes. The weapon never fired. A new sound filled the room, a sharp, continuous hiss like burning gas. Opened his eyes to see a beam of brilliant blue-white light slice through the drone's weapon arm. The limb fell to the floor, sparking and twitching. A human stepped through the broken doorway behind the drone. One, the medical officer. He held some kind of cutting tool in both hands, its blade made of superheated plasma. The tool was not meant to be a weapon. It was designed for cutting through damaged hull sections during rescue operations. But it worked just fine on armor. One moved with surprising speed for someone so calm. He slashed the plasma cutter across the drone's leg joints. The creature stumbled. Before it could recover, one drove the cutter straight into the cluster of sensors that served as its head. The drone convulsed once and went still. The human kicked the body aside and looked at. "Can you run?" one asked. Could only stare. His mind was trying to process what just happened. This quiet, careful human had just killed a combat drone in seconds. "Can you run?" one repeated louder this time. Yes, managed to say. "Then move. We have maybe 2 minutes before more of them show up." One grabbed his arm and pulled him to his feet. They ran into the corridor together. Behind them could hear the sounds of more drones approaching. Their metal feet clanged against the floor like drums. They ran through corridors that knew from his maps but had never actually traveled. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Smoke filled some sections. Several areas had lost atmosphere and they had to detour around them. All the while, one led the way, his plasma cutter ready, his movements quick and efficient. "Where are we going?" asked, breathing hard. "Command center. Jinwoo wants everyone together." "Why have you not evacuated?" One glanced back at him while they ran. There was something in the human's eyes, not fear, not panic, something harder, something determined. Jinwoo decided, "We're going to fight." "That is insane. You cannot defeat a hive ship." "Probably not," one agreed, "but we're going to try anyway." They turned a corner and nearly ran into 3 more drones. One shoved behind a support pillar and attacked. The plasma cutter hummed and slashed. One drone went down, then another. The third managed to fire a shot that grazed one's shoulder. The human barely flinched. He destroyed the drone and kept moving. "You are injured," said. "I've had worse, come on." They reached the command center 3 minutes later. The doors were sealed, but one input a code and they slid open. Inside, saw the rest of the human crew. Jinwoo stood at the central console, managing tactical displays, was at the pilot station, coordinating the station's few defensive systems, worked frantically at an engineering terminal, bypassing damaged circuits and rerouting power, stood by the door, armed with a rifle in one hand and a blade in the other. She had blood on her arms, but it did not seem to be hers. They all looked up when entered. Jinwoo studied him for a moment, felt exposed under that gaze. The human knew. Somehow, Jinwoo knew exactly what he was. "You're the spy," Jinwoo said. It was not a question. His training said to deny everything, but these humans had just saved his life. Lying seemed wrong. "Yes," he admitted. Jinwoo nodded slowly. "Been watching us for what, 2 months? 73 days. Get good data." The question was so unexpected that did not know how to answer. Yes, very good data." "Good, you can tell your people about this later. Right now, we need every hand we can get. Can you fight?" "I have basic combat training, but—" "That'll do." Jinwoo gestured to arm him. Handed a rifle without hesitation. It was too large for his hands, designed for humans, but he could hold it. She showed him how to fire it in 10 seconds. "Point, squeeze trigger, don't hit us," she said simply. Looked around the command center. These humans were not treating him like an enemy spy. They were treating him like part of the crew. After everything he had done, all the watching and reporting and judging them from the shadows, they were giving him a weapon and a chance to defend himself. "I do not understand," said. "Why?" "Because they don't care if you're human or alien," Jinwoo replied. "They'll kill you just the same, and we don't leave people behind, not even spies. Now get to that console and help." Moved to the engineering station. Was pulling up power distribution grids, trying to redirect energy from non-essential systems to the station's defenses. He barely glanced at before launching into a rapid explanation. "The mining lasers are our best bet. They're designed to cut through solid rock, so they should damage the drones. But they need massive amounts of power, and half our reactors are offline. I need you to calculate optimal power distribution while I physically reroute the connections. Can you do that?" His training included advanced mathematics and engineering. "Yes." "Then let's go." For the next hour worked alongside. He ran calculations while the human engineer crawled through access tunnels, manually connecting power lines and bypassing damaged systems. It was dangerous work. Several sections were exposed to vacuum. Others were filled with radiation from damaged reactors, but went everywhere, fixed everything, and somehow survived it all. Through the command center speakers, could hear his voice as she coordinated the defense. "Mining Laser 3 is online, firing on drone cluster near the docking bay." The screen showed the result. A beam of concentrated energy, designed to cut through asteroids, sliced through 3 drones at once. They exploded in flashes of green light. "Good shot," Jinwoo said calmly. "How's Section 5? "Cleared," Kame's voice over the comm. She was somewhere else in the station hunting drones. 11 down, moving to Section 6. "Be careful. Sensors show a group of 6 heading your way." 6, finally a challenge. Heard weapons fire over the comm, then silence, then's voice again. "Section 6 clear, 13 down." These humans were not just surviving, they were winning. Watched the tactical display. The number of active drones inside the station was dropping steadily. 20, 15, 10. The humans were systematically hunting them down and destroying them. But the hive ship was still out there, could see it on the long-range sensors. It had not moved, it was just waiting, watching. The drones were just a test, a probe. The real attack had not even started yet. Jinwoo said over the comm, "I've got the main mining array back online, all 6 lasers operational. Can you link them together?" "Link them? You mean fire them all at once?" "Yes." There was a pause. Could imagine running the calculations. 6 mining lasers, each drawing enormous power, all firing simultaneously. The energy drain would be incredible. It might overload the entire power grid. Theoretically, yes, said slowly. But the reactor might not handle it. We could lose power to everything. If we don't damage that hive ship, we're dead anyway, Jinwoo said. Set it up. On it. Help prepare the systems. It took 20 minutes to link all 6 mining lasers to a single targeting computer and synchronize their firing sequences. Would control them from the command center. When they finished, Jinwoo called everyone back to the command center. Arrived first, covered in scorch marks and blood. Came up through a service tunnel. They all gathered around the main display. The hive ship was moving, coming closer to the station. Its weapons were powering up. Green energy was building along its hull. They're going to fire the planet cracker, said quietly. One shot and we're gone. Then we fire first, Jinwoo said. You have control. All 6 lasers. Target the central weapon cluster. Fire when ready. His hands moved across the controls. The screen showed all 6 mining lasers rotating into position, their targeting systems locking onto the massive ship. Locked, said. Fire. 6 beams of brilliant white light lanced out from the station. They converged on a single point on the hive ship's hull. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship's shields failed. The lasers burned through armor. Explosions rippled across the surface. The hive ship's weapon cluster erupted in a fireball that lit up the entire asteroid field. But the ship was not destroyed. It was damaged, badly damaged, but still functional, and now it was angry. The hive ship began charging its main weapon again. This time, it would not miss. Jinwoo looked at his crew, at his station. Then he smiled. All right, he said. Plan B, we're going to ram it. Stared at Jinwoo. He had heard the words, but they made no sense. Ram it, he repeated. You want to ram the hive ship with the station? Yes, Jinwoo said calmly, as if this was a completely reasonable plan. That is impossible. This station is not designed for movement. It has only positioning thrusters, not proper engines. And even if you could move it, the ship would simply destroy us before we got close. Probably, Jinwoo agreed. Unless we overload every fusion reactor on the station at the same time, create one massive explosion, turn this entire facility into a bomb traveling at high speed. The command center went quiet. Everyone was looking at Jinwoo now. That will destroy the station completely, one said. Yes. And us with it if we're still aboard. That's why we'll evacuate first, Jinwoo said. He turned to, how long do you need to set up the reactors? Was already pulling up reactor schematics on his display. His fingers flew across the controls, running calculations. If I bypass all the safety systems and set the cores to cascade failure, maybe 30 minutes to set up. Then you'd need to manually hold them stable for another 30 seconds once they start overloading. Any longer and they blow early. Any shorter and we don't build up enough energy. Can it be done remotely? Shook his head. No, someone has to be in the reactor room. The controls are too damaged for remote access. Jinwoo nodded, accepting this. Can you plot a trajectory that hits the hive ship? Was already working on it. Yes. If we use the positioning thrusters at full power, we can reach 0.3% of light speed. At that velocity and mass, we'll punch through their shields like paper. Do it. Everyone, we have 30 minutes to prepare. Grab only what you can carry. We evacuate in the emergency pods the moment the station starts moving. The crew moved immediately. They had trained for emergencies. They knew their jobs, only stood frozen trying to process what was happening. These humans were going to destroy their own station, their home, everything they had built here, and they were doing it without hesitation, without argument, because it was the only way to survive. I will help, heard himself say. Jinwoo looked at him. You sure? Your people will probably send a rescue ship for you. You could just hide and wait. No, said firmly, I will help. Something passed between them, an understanding. Jinwoo nodded once and gestured toward the engineering terminal. Help with the reactor calculations. We need this to work on the first try. The next 30 minutes were the longest of his life. He worked with calculating optimal overload sequences, checking and rechecking every number. One mistake and the reactors would explode too early or not at all. Around them, the station transformed, programmed the positioning thrusters for maximum burn, rigged explosive charges on several sections to help push the station in the right direction. One prepared the emergency medical supplies for the escape pods. Jinwoo coordinated everything, his voice calm and steady over the comms. The hive ship continued charging its main weapon. The green energy along its hull grew brighter. They had maybe 40 minutes before it fired, maybe less. Reactor prep is complete, announced, ready for final sequence. All personnel evacuate to the pods, Jinwoo ordered. Stay with me. We'll activate the sequence and then get out. Sir, someone needs to hold the reactors stable, said quietly. I know, that's my job. You're getting out of here. With respect, Commander, you're not an engineer. You'll blow us all up in the first 5 seconds. I'm staying. Jinwoo opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He knew was right. The reactor work required an expert touch, only had the skill to hold the cores stable long enough. 30 seconds, Jinwoo said. Then you run, promise me. 30 seconds, agreed, promise. They both knew it was a lie. 30 seconds would barely be enough. 45 seconds would be safer, maybe 50. And every extra second stayed was a second less he had to reach the escape pods. One stepped forward. Then I'm staying too. If he gets injured, he'll need help reaching the pods. One, Jinwoo started. Not arguing, Commander, I'm staying. Jinwoo looked at his crew, his friends, then he nodded slowly. All right, everyone else get to the pods now. Followed and through the corridors. Behind them, he could hear Jinwoo giving final orders 2 and 1. The 3 of them would activate the reactors, start the cascade, and then run. If they timed it perfectly, they might make it, if. The escape pod bay was a mess. Several pods were damaged from the earlier fighting. Only 2 remained functional. Began the launch prep while checked the supplies. 2 pods, 5 people, calculated. 3 in one, 2 in the other. If everyone makes it, said quietly. They waited. The minutes stretched out. Over the comm, they could hear working in the reactor room, the sound of tools on metal, the hum of power building, the beep of warning alarms. Sequence initiated, his voice said. Cores are overloading, 30 seconds starting. Now. Counted in his head, 1, 2, 3. The station began to move. The positioning thrusters fired all at once, pushing the massive facility forward. The acceleration was gentle at first, then building. 4, 5, 6. Holding steady, said, his voice was strained. 20 seconds. 7, 8, 9. Could hear alarms in the background of comm signal. The reactors were screaming. 10, 11, 12. 15 seconds, grunted. Come on, come on. 13, 14, 15. The station was really moving now. Could feel the vibration through the floor. The whole structure groaned under the stress. 10 seconds, 1 go. Not without you. Go. 16, 17, 18. The comm channel went silent except for the sound of running feet. Imagined and one sprinting through corridors, racing against time itself. 5 seconds. That was voice gasping for air. 4, 3. They burst into the pod bay. Both humans were running at full speed. Hands were burned. One was pulling him along. Get in, Jinwoo shouted from the first pod. And one dove through the hatch. Jinwoo sealed it immediately and hit the launch button. Both pods ejected from the station at maximum velocity, their emergency thrusters pushing them away as fast as possible. Through the small window, watched the mining station accelerate. It was moving faster than something that large should be able to move. The positioning thrusters burned bright white. The entire structure glowed from the energy building in its core. The hive ship finally noticed the danger. It tried to turn, tried to bring its weapons to bear. Too late, far too late. The mining station, all 30,000 tons of it, traveling at 0.3% of light speed, struck the hive ship dead center. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The station simply disappeared into the larger vessel's hull. Then every fusion reactor on 7 exploded at once. The blast was visible across half the solar system. A miniature sun bloomed in space. The hive ship tried to contain the explosion, but its shields were already damaged. The energy tore through it like fire through paper. The massive vessel split in two. Secondary explosions rippled along its length as its own systems failed. Within seconds, the feared hive ship was nothing but debris and fatting fire. Inside the escape pod, nobody spoke. They just stared at the destruction, at the death of the monster that had tried to kill them, at the sacrifice of their home. Finally activated the emergency beacon. This is Mining Station 7, emergency evacuation, requesting immediate rescue. 5 survivors. 5 survivors. Against a hive ship, 5 fragile humans and 1 alien observer. They had won. Rescue came 6 hours later. A human patrol ship arrived first, followed shortly by a cruiser. Recognized it as one of his people's fastest vessels. They had probably detected the presence and come to investigate. As the survivors were brought aboard the human ship, found himself standing next to Jinwoo in the docking bay. The human commander looked tired. They all did, tired but alive. "You knew I was there," said, "the whole time." Jinwoo nodded. "Noticed some power anomalies in storage 7C about 2 weeks after you arrived. We figured someone was watching us. Didn't know if you were a spy, a criminal, or just someone who wanted privacy. Decided to leave you alone unless you caused trouble. I was reporting on you, judging you, sending information to my superiors." "I know. Did you get good data?" It was the second time Jinwoo had asked that question. This time, understood what the human really meant. Not did you gather information, but did you learn something? "Yes," said softly. "I learned that my people were wrong about humans. We thought you were weak, fragile, insignificant." And now, thought about everything he had seen. Surviving radiation that should have killed him, flying through impossible obstacles, one enduring vacuum, fighting multiple drones alone, Jinwoo making decisions that saved them all. "Now I think you are the most dangerous species in the galaxy," said honestly, "because you do not accept defeat. You do not calculate odds and give up when they are bad. You simply refuse to die." Jinwoo smiled. "That's one way to put it." "You saved my life," continued. "I was your enemy. I was spying on you, yet you protected me. You gave me a weapon. You included me in your crew. Why?" Jinwoo looked at him for a long moment. "Because that's what humans do," he said simply. "We don't leave people behind, not our friends, not our enemies, not even alien spies who were watching us from the shadows. When the trouble came, we were all in it together. That made you one of us." Felt something break inside him. Some wall he had built between himself and these strange creatures. These impossible, stubborn, wonderful humans who had saved his life for no reason, except that it was the right thing to do. "I need to file a report," said. "What will you tell them?" "The truth, that humanity is not what we thought, that you are stronger than you appear, that anyone who underestimates you does so at their own risk. And that I request reassignment, not away from humanity, but toward it. Someone needs to help my people understand what you really are." Jinwoo extended his hand. It took a moment to recognize the gesture, a human greeting, a sign of friendship. He reached out with his own hand and grasped Jinwoo's. "Welcome to the crew," Jinwoo said. Later, alone in his quarters on the cruiser, composed his final report. He kept it short. His superiors would want detailed analysis, tactical assessments, cultural studies. He would provide all of that later. But for now, he wrote only one sentence. We have consistently underestimated humanity. This is a mistake we cannot afford to make again. He attached all his sensor data, all his observations, all the impossible things he had witnessed. Then he sent the report and sat back in his chair. Through the window, he could see the debris field where the hive ship had been, where 5 humans and 1 alien had refused to die, where he had learned what it really meant to survive, and what it meant to be saved.